And it's like, you misplayed over 10 times. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
That's hilarious.
You suck.
I thought I was doing pretty good. I got pretty far.
Achievement unlocked, you suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is what it was, yeah.
All right.
Welcome back to the NerdNest podcast. We've got a full crew yet again, and it's time for us to talk about video game news. Before we get to that video game news, we want to talk first about the games that we've been playing. Cary, what games have you been playing this week?
So, Inscription is a game that I've always seen people mention all the time, and I'm like, I'm going to pick it up, but it's Devolver Digital. It'll be on Humble Bundle someday or some other bundle. I'll just wait for that because I just rather not have a game and just be able to enjoy the entire bundle. So, it comes out on Game Pass 3 years later, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and just use this because I already have Game Pass. So, I start playing, and I knew that there was some macabre type of stuff to it, and it has a really cool vibe. And as I'm playing through the game, it keeps on devolving into this weird kind of, it's just a really cool mood. And then all of a sudden the game takes off in a weird direction, like you're like kind of kidnapped to play this card game, and then you can like break away from the card game and like walk around the cabin that you're kidnapped in. And there's other things that you can do, and the cards that you have, there's two of them, actually three of them, that can talk to you and give you hints about what you need to like unlock in the cabin. And then this just kind of cascades more and more in, and there's like this weirdo meta thing that's going on where one of the developers is like taking like live action, pretending he's like in Blair Witch type of thing, and it's a crazy go nuts game. I literally just beat it yesterday. There's like a bunch of achievements that I'm missing, but now I'm in like this like uber hard new game plus, and I am not fit out for it. So I think I'm just gonna like call it quits and just be like, okay, I beat the game, I played this, and I'm getting tossed, so I'm gonna back away now.
Since you're not doing New Game Plus, and I haven't played too much of Inscription, and I definitely haven't played too much of these other games, but I do want to recommend, because it's from the same developer, Pony Island. So Pony Island is also really like strange, and again, I've only played a little bit, but it may interest you with the turns that it probably takes.
Right, yeah, there's might be a whole like Frog Fractions genre of games.
Yeah,
it's like this game is weird. Wait, what's going on?
Yep.
Huh? Where am I being led?
Go ahead.
So the only other thing I wanted to mention in Inscription was that the initial playthrough when I was going through, my cards were giving me hints, and I was like, okay, I'll do that when I die because I know I'm going to die, and I just randomly hit on all the other like little hints that they were calling out, and I managed to like chain together the most awesome run ever. And I was scared that I literally skipped a giant chunk of the first part of the game because I literally sailed through the entire game. I got the third character card for the first time that talks to you, and this is still in the beginning. And he was like, "Oh, I'll tell you what to do, but that'll be after this." And I was like, "Okay." And there was never an after this, so it's just like, what did I do? But yeah, it's a fun game. It takes some really interesting twists and turns. Glad it was on Game Pass. I was going to wait for it to be a sale, but definitely really cool.
So is it like because I had a billion people recommend this game to me, and I've always said, oh, someday, like it's been on my wish list on Steam for ages, I think. And I just never got around to playing it. I think it was on Game Pass at one point, and I think I downloaded it, but never played it as I usually do with things like this. But everybody's always saying how great it is. Is it the kind of card game where it's you playing against a thing, or is it more like a solitaire game, or is it more like a roguelike card game? Like how's it actually work?
Yeah, you could kind of say that it's roguelike in a sense that you're going through a run and you're building your deck. There can be like roguelite plus stuff as you like go back to the cabin and do some stuff. But it's still very much, you only have a limited deck when you start off, and as you're traversing through, you're building your deck and kind of morphing it as you go along. You're playing against a computer the entire time, and it's very simple. Like, there's not a whole bunch of card mechanics to it. The problem for me is I don't know how hard it was because I kind of just like within 3 hours I passed the entire first part, and I don't know if that is the correct amount of time. They were being abundant with like hints and stuff. Like the hints were layered thick, so you just had to like read a little bit and maybe rub a few brain cells together, and it would be like, oh, okay, I understand. I know what I have to do. But like outside of that, I don't know how hard it. The difference in difficulty between New Game Plus and this is vast. So I sailed through the first part and I'm getting housed on the second part. I'm like, all right, there's a bunch of secret achievements that I don't even know what they are. I would really recommend playing this game blind, like Frog Fractions, like Outer Wilds, like I talked about this in the Discord with Rich as well, and there's a part of like the Metroidvania type of genre where this is more Frog Fractions card game. There's a portion of it where if you were to read up on how to pass things, you're likely going to ruin the game for yourself. That's why a lot of people are more or less like, oh, you got to play this game, but you should go into it blind. It was fairly easy, and I kind of sailed through in the beginning. But yeah, that's it. In New Game Plus, it tells me how many misplays I had. I got an achievement because I got over 10 misplays. I don't know how they qualify misplays. Like it's like, oh, okay, this is this, and maybe there's always a win condition for everything that they are starting at. Yeah. So you can always win. And if that's the case, if you do anything that is not a win condition, they consider it a misplay. But yeah, like the very first New Game Plus I played is like, oh, achievement unlocked. It's like, oh, what did I do? And it's like, you misplayed over 10 times. It's like, yeah. Oh.
That's hilarious.
You suck.
I thought I was doing pretty good. I got pretty far.
Achievement unlocked. You suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is what it was. Yeah.
All right.
In the little bit that I played, I do remember that like there were like these different paths and like and you can tell, if I recall correctly, that you can take like a more difficult path. Did you take like the more like a direct route to finish the game? Do you think?
So for so I died like I want to say 4 or 5 times. Like I went through it because you have to like solve some of the puzzles. You have to play through it and die a few times for your cards to talk to you and be like, oh, you did this. Oh, okay, he's doing this again. If you use this, you should go for that. So they're literally telling you what to do in like as an assisted tutorial, but it feels like a part of the story. Really well handled in terms of like tutorial and stuff. So that whole part, I played the cabin stuff, but I figured something out through one of the, like, combining 2 of the hints that they gave me. There was, like, a card that was like, oh, this looks like it sucks, but I bet you it's pretty interesting. And then there was, like, something that they said in the path that you can take where you can get, like, power-ups or go to a difficult path. I went to a power-up and combined the card, and then all of a sudden I was on a gravy train with biscuit wheels. Like, I had a card that was, like, I don't know, 36 damage and going 3-way, so left, right, and center. So I was just destroying stuff, and I was like, I am a death merchant. Come sample my wares. And it was just a lot of fun. Like I felt like it was like so much fun. I'm like, this is how you're supposed to play. Like I just read all the stuff, and this is how it was supposed to be. And I sailed through, and I'm like, oh, I probably should have died, but I didn't want to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Yeah, it does sound like fun, and that's on Game Pass, right?
Yeah, it just went on Game Pass this week, and I was like, I'll play this before Call of Duty, which feels like a cheat code. Downloading Black Ops 6 on Game Pass feels like I'm doing something wrong. Like, it's like, I feel like Microsoft was like, oh, sorry, there was an error in letting you download that. Sorry, that game's not day one. We've spent $70 billion on this. Please understand.
Please understand. Russ, last week, you and I, we were chatting, and you said that you were thinking about maybe you were going to play some Spider-Man, and it seems like you have. How far did you get?
That very day. Well, I only played maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, actually. I like, as soon as we finished recording, I like left and went back to the house and then immediately fired it up, and first I had to like download it. That took forever, but then after that I was able to play it, and I played it on my ROG Nook, which is like a little mini PC. I have it hooked up to my living room TV, and Yeah, I played it for about 2 hours, just straight storyline. Like they're like, oh hey, you know, like you could go and do this if you wanted, and I'm like, nope, and just like straight like trying to finish the story because I really want to get to Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2, and so yeah, really enjoying it, like just in the sense of like getting back into the swing of things, no pun intended. But I went from about 16% complete, you know, it tells you when you save the game how far you are, to like 26%. So I finished 10% of the game in about an hour and a half or so. And so I thought that was pretty good. No big revelations other than the fact that I finally hunkered down and played it a bit. And I feel like that's the next AAA game I'll sit down and play through. And so, yeah, that was it for Spider-Man. But then last night, I think we talked about it before, but I got like the orange and gray Retroid Pocket Mini. So this is an error that they made. It was supposed to be a white cover, and instead they used like a gray glass or dark glass. And so that's why it looks like this. And it's like a whole thing where they were like, if you want, you can exchange it, or we'll just give you $15 as a sorry kind of thing. And I'm still deciding. I think I am going to keep it. But, you know, people pointed out this kind of looks like a Half-Life edition, you know. Ooh. And so... So the first thing I did last night was I went and I loaded up Half-Life 2 on it. So I'm playing
nice.
Half-Life 2 on the Retroid Pocket Mini. So this is a source port. So essentially, I like did a little digging about the story because I had installed this on some Android device a couple years ago, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So apparently, for the NVIDIA Shield, there was like a partnership between Valve and you know NVIDIA where they released a bunch of like Portal, I think, and Half-Life 2, and they like made a port of Source Engine to work on Android, and then just everything closed down and you know it's not accessible anymore. Well, apparently somebody figured out a way to make an APK or grab the APK or whatever of that Source Engine and then make a port for it that you can just download. And so so you can download that Source Engine and then you just drag and drop your Steam files in. And that's basically it. And so then you point the app to your Steam files, and depending on the files that you point it to, it's going to play that game. And it's not just Half-Life 2 and Portal. It's got like Half-Life 2 Deathmatch and a couple others. I don't know. I didn't really look at them. The episodes as well. And so like the full Half-Life 2 stuff and even Half-Life 1 source is available as well. And so it's all kind of drag and drop. And so I thought it was just kind of interesting that it is available, but it's one of those things where you got to like join their Discord to get the file kind of thing. Like, and so it's like, I'm not going to make a video about that. That's like too much in the, like, especially with 2 strikes on my channel, I'm not going towards anything that could be construed as me like circumventing, even though I'm using my Steam files, you know, but it is kind of cool to have Half-Life 2 on here. And it is one indication that this is not an ideal handheld for me when it comes to those type of games because the analog sticks are down at the bottom. And so it just feels a little bit like, I don't know the right word, like floppy, flippy, you know, like I'm playing it and I'm like, I feel like this thing could just flip out of my hands, you know, as opposed to the offset analog sticks, which I think are just a little bit better on a smaller device, you know. So just I did load it up on my Odin 2 as well, and that's like a much better experience. So. Yeah.
Have you played Half-Life 2 before, or is this your first time playing it?
Yeah, the last time I played was on the Orange Box when it first came out, so it's been a while, you know, and I am at a point where I kind of do want to have that Half-Life 2 episode 2 cliffhanger experience again, and so I do kind of feel like it's time, you know, so I do want to play it a little bit more. But yeah, the novelty of just playing it on something that looks like an Orange Box machine is kind of funny.
So... Have you heard that? You've heard the news about Half-Life 2, right? Or you haven't?
No.
It's what a coincidence. So there's like lots of updates happening to Half-Life 2 in the background right now. So they're thinking that it's going to be the anniversary update like it was for Half-Life 1. So they're going to next month, well, you know, in a couple weeks, they're going to have the, you know, super special edition of Half-Life 2. It's probably, you know, with better controller support and all the other stuff that they did for Half-Life 1.
Amazing.
Yeah. So there's stuff working. Last time there was smoke, there was fire. So
the one thing I would like, bigger, easier to see reticle. The reticle in Half-Life and in Half-Life 2 is so tiny that when you play on a Steam Deck or PC handheld, which is my preferred way to play, like it's hard to see where that little reticle is. And like I think that there's even mods out there that you can get where they change the reticle to something that's just easier to see. It's this holdover from 1998 when it came out, and it's just this little tiny little orange crosshair in the middle, and you're like, come on, it's so small. But I love that game. That's like one of my favorite experiences of all time. I still remember, and I played it on Orange Box as well. I still remember like finishing Half-Life 2 Episode 2 and just setting down the controller and being like, man, I can't wait for the next thing to come out.
Just in a few months.
You knew.
What do you mean I knew?
Valve had that reputation even then.
I guess I didn't pay attention.
I didn't know
I
at
feel
all.
like that's part of where, we're talking about Episode 2 cliffhanger, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we won't spoil it, everybody, so relax.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten to it personally, so
Oh, okay.
I would like you to not spoil it. But like I feel like I remember like even just the fact that they did episodes was already like they can't count to 3, right? Like they went from Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2, and then started doing episodes. Like they started counting all over again. So I felt like when they couldn't get to Episode 3, people were disappointed. But
right.
I don't know if they were surprised.
I still don't understand their nomenclature for the episodes, because what it should have been, there was Half-Life 1, then there was Half-Life 2, and then they're like Half-Life 2 Episode 1, and you're like, what? It should be Half-Life 3 Episode 1. Like, why are they counting like this? It's so freaking weird, but it's an amazing experience. And Rich, you got to get there. You got to get there so you can be disappointed like the rest of us, because I want to know.
Well, they say Alex, right? So we got to, none of us have played Alex, right? So
I have.
Through,
you have. Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, the three of us need to get to that.
I bought an index when it just became available, and it's really well done. It's a real I didn't finish Half-Life Alex, but I probably put in like 2 or 3 hours, and I just enjoyed it as a really fun VR game that I wanted to continue playing. There's lots of things that they're doing to facilitate better VR gameplay stuff.
Nice.
But it's kind of like the Batman game that just came out for Oculus. I'm hearing like great things for that as well. Like it's like purpose-built VR games are just amazing when you have people that hunker down and do them.
Yeah.
I saw a video on Twitter of somebody playing that new Batman game, and they're like, he's sitting in his chair and he throws his hands up in the air like he doesn't care. He throws his hands up, and I guess that's like bringing out Batman's cape, and you see his view. He floats down into the middle of this group of bad guys, and then basically it almost feels like a Guitar Hero kind of thing, or a Beat Saber kind of thing, where it's like punch this guy in this direction, and so he's punching in that direction, and then turning to face the next guy and doing that. And I was like, oh, this actually looks pretty fun and frenetic.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Batarang one where it goes like, weak, and I'm like, oh man, that does look really sick.
Yeah. My son has a MetaQuest 3 that we got him for Christmas, and what I just need to do is I need to just borrow it and pair it to my computer via the Steam Link thing, because I have Half-Life Alyx, because I've mentioned this on the show before, but I bought the Steam controller, and anybody who bought the Steam controller and connected it to a Mac, there was like some kind of driver issue, and Valve's apology was, have our entire catalog of games. That from now until forever, they just will show up in your library, which is an amazing mea culpa of doing, we're sorry it didn't work. But so I have Half-Life Alyx. I haven't played it because I don't have my own VR headset, and it never occurs to me to go and borrow his and hook it up and do all that stuff. But I definitely want to find out what happens, because I think that there is some kind of conclusion to Half-Life 2 Episode 2, right, Cary?
It's the writers released the thing obfuscated, so I guess you could always just read Episode 3.
I don't want to read it. I want to experience it.
Half-Life Alyx is a lot of fun. I don't know if it's Episode 3 though.
Oh, okay.
Let me interject and say that if you do that Quest VR thing and you stream from your PC, don't use the Steam one. I mean, it works, but there's one called Virtual Desktop, and it's like $5 or $10 or whatever, and it is twice as good. And so just make a note of that, because that's what I used for my Quest 3 when I was playing Half-Life Alyx, and it's just seamless. It was amazing. A lot easier to use than like Steam Link, and I think Quest even has like their own ability to do it tethered, but it's the Virtual Desktop one. It's great. It's a third-party app, but it works really well.
Come on, Valve.
Awesome. Yes, come on, Valve. We're waiting for you. And everybody's been waiting to find out what Rich has been playing. What have you been playing this week, Rich?
I oddly played Among Us today, and it was really my first time actually playing, but it was like a work team bonding thing that one of my coworkers it was his team, and he invited my team, and it was just like a cross-team bonding, and it was a lot of fun, and he betrayed me and murdered me, so that wasn't nice of him. And it was after I was like, I vouched for him. I was like, oh yeah, I saw him over there and we did the thing together, so he's good. And then he murdered me, so loser.
It's nothing personal. It's just business.
Yeah. What ends more friendships? He asked me after what ends more friendships, that or Settlers of Catan. Well, yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah.
I think Mario Kart is or Mario Party is the correct answer for that one.
Mario
That's
Party,
the one that ends the most friendships.
Yeah. I also played a ton of Next Fest demos. I made some recommendations in my last video. But one recommendation I didn't make because a friend pointed it out to me after my video was a game called Spirit Cross Strike. So like Spirit X Strike. And it kind of looks like God Hand. It doesn't necessarily play exactly like God Hand, but it just has this like Fist of the North Star kind of desert like ambiance, and you're just beating bad guys up like a Devil May Cry kind of character action game, and it is a blast so far. It's janky. It's really janky, but it's still a blast. And I don't know, those are some of my favorite games, is those like janky but really fun beat 'em ups. Not quite like beat 'em ups like Streets Rage, but like God Hand, Devil May Cry, like that kind of game.
Gotcha. I always call those button mashers because I don't have the discipline to push X 3 times in a good rhythm and then press Y. I'm just like smashing all 4 buttons at the same time, and I still somehow win. And I'm like, okay, it works for me.
Yeah,
S class.
Right. I was gonna say my problem is I get obsessed with the class and like ranking getting a good rank at the end of a level. And so I will replay a level. And also sometimes like you're not meant to get a good grade the first time you run through a level, right? Like you're meant to go get some upgrades later on, come back to that level, replay it then and get a good rank. But I get stuck in this loop where like, no, I gotta get a better rank. I gotta get a better rank. And I won't move on until I get at least one S.
At least one. So they go multiple S's. See, I'm always like in B. I'm in B tier. It's like you did okay. You got to the end. You didn't
passed.
Die.
Yeah. Achievement unlocked.
Okay. Yeah. Achievement unlocked. You suck. So the games that I've been playing, the game that I've been playing this week is, I don't know how to say it. It was originally called New World. It was a PC only game. It's now on console as well. I bought it when it was on PC. New World Aeternum, I think is how you say it. And it's an MMO. It's the Amazon MMO where you have like different weapons, and the weapons have different moves that you can use, and you can have 2 weapons at a time, and they have a bunch of different ways to play. So you can have like a musket if you want to do long range attack, or you can do a bow and arrow as long range attack, and both of those feel very, very different. You also have like dual wielding or sword and board, or you have big honking 2-handed weapons like battle axes or big hammers. I can't remember all of the different combos. I've been playing with a sword and board, which is a very defensive build, and a big hammer. So basically what happens is I walk up to an enemy, and each type of weapon that you have has 3 big attacks that are like, your cooldowns. So I would run up to an enemy, spend a cooldown, maybe do a couple of just regular pull the trigger to attack things, and then swap to my other weapon set, burn those cooldowns, swap back to my first weapon set, burn those cooldowns, and keep doing that back and forth, dodging out of telegraphed attacks and stuff like that along the way. And then you know, you fight stuff and you can gather resources and craft and do all the things that you do in the typical MMO. I'm level 29 right now, and I really, really like the game. It plays unbelievably good on the Steam Deck. Like, I'm getting like 40 frames per second on this, and I did not I figured that this game would run like crap. It's all on low settings, but it looks great, and it's running at 40 frames per second, and the controls are wonderful. The game originally came out, it was just mouse and keyboard, but it feels really good just sitting there on my Steam Deck playing with the controls just on the default set. I didn't have to do any Steam input shenanigans, but it's definitely a game that I would recommend if you can. I don't know if there's a demo available. If there is a demo available, definitely try it, because it's not a game for everybody, but as somebody who loves to play MMOs, I just love that game. So I'm a big fan of it. Has any of you guys played New World?
I'm aware of it,
No?
but I haven't played it.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't played it. I did. I remember when it came out, and I was surprised because it was, you know, a game made by Amazon, and I was surprised that it like kind of blew up pretty quickly too, right? Like it had a good following pretty quickly. As of right now, it's got 43,000 concurrent users approximately.
That's solid.
Yeah, that's real solid. And their all-time peak is 913,000. So, yeah, pretty like first real game from Amazon, right? I want to say.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think so.
I feel like it.
Yeah. So
it's go ahead.
Definitely their big game, yeah.
yeah, if it's not their first, it's I would assume pretty close to their first, and that's impressive to have an outing like that.
Sorry, does it play like Terra or more like World of Warcraft?
It does. It's not. So it's not a tab targeting MMO game. I think I might have played Terra when it first came out like a billion years ago, but I don't remember how that plays.
Is it like an action RPG but with cooldowns?
Yeah, basically an action RPG, but it's imagine Diablo, but instead of being up above, you've got it behind you.
Right.
I know that they had some really strange like structures in the game, because it was originally supposed to be like this PvP game where you go into the world and you fight against other factions to control regions and stuff, and that seems cool, but not for me. I'm not hyper competitive. I just wanted to go into the game and have some fun combat, which I absolutely do. But then they had like some weird things where they had set up for dungeons where you would have to like find somebody that had a key to the dungeon, and that seemed like a huge pain in the ass. And then I think eventually they realized the error of their ways and said, okay, there's too many barriers to entry to slow down, add too much friction to when people want to be able to play this game. And I think that they may have fixed that stuff, but I just picked it up again this week. So I'm just relearning how to play. Like I had to figure out, oh, okay, I want to do, this is my new rotation, because, you know, I didn't even have any abilities on my hotbar because my character had been, all of my points that I had spent had been wiped because they've changed the game so much. And so in typical MMO fashion, every time they do a big patch, you have to relearn how to play. And so I'm still relearning how to play. And I don't know if they fixed like the weird dungeon stuff for the PvP faction stuff, but I don't do PvP anyway. But it's a cool game. And, you know, if you picked it up, which there's 900,000 people that did at some point, I guess, check it out again. Maybe they fixed it for you. It runs really, really well on handheld PCs. So there's my recommendation. Anybody else play anything else before we move on to the news? All right. I did want to mention that I think all of us were in a video over on
Steam Deck HQ.
Thank you. Steam Deck HQ's channel. It was a Steam Pals video where each of us found a game on Steam Next Fest and talked about that, and then High Tech Low Life put all that together and posted it on Steam Deck HQ's channel. So I'll make sure to link in the description down below so that you guys can check that out. But let's move on to the news, where Valve says it's not fair. They just don't think it's fair to do a spec bump every year or a new Steam Deck every year. And, you know, this isn't new news. This is something that Valve has said over and over and over again. And they yet again reiterated the idea that they don't want to bring out new hardware until there's a significant performance boost. And specifically, this is what they said. We're not going to do a bump every year. There's no reason to do that. And honestly, from our perspective, that's kind of not really fair to your customers to come out with something so soon that's only incrementally better. So we really do want to wait for a generational leap in compute without sacrificing battery life before we ship a second generation of Steam Deck. But it is something that we're excited about and that we're working on. So I wanted to get the guys' reactions to this because I can't speak for everybody. I barely touch my ROG Ally. My ROG Ally X is completely taken over for that. Like, I always play on the ROG Ally X, and I think that that was a really good bump, but it wasn't a spec bump. You know, it was just an improvement because of that battery life. I never touch my LCD Steam Deck because the OLED one has better features. Again, not a spec bump, but it was an improvement. And so I think that it's definitely something that I like, all of the things that they improved about it. So it seems like both Valve and Asus have done this thing where, you know, they put out a product and then they said, okay, that's not really the product that we wanted to put out. This is the product that we wanted to put out. And I think that most of us would agree that that second version is much superior to the first version on both counts. What do you guys think about this particular quote? And Russ, I'm going to start with you.
You know, I immediately started to feel hot around the collar for other companies when I started hearing that not being fair to others, you know, because I was thinking about like MSI, you know, because they're already working on that MSI Claw 2 or whatever they're going to call it. And then, the ROG Ally X, I think, was the smart move and just kind of perfecting the hardware experience of the original one without like saying, hey, here's the next one. You make sure you get this. It was more like, hey, if you haven't got one yet, get this one instead. Like that's what I like. It's like the Switch OLED versus the regular Switch. So I agree. I mean, I think all of us are going to agree that this is the move. You know what I mean? Like to wait until we have a generational leap. I love the fact that he even said generational leap in the quote. You know what I mean? Because that's what we all want with our next thing. You know, it's going to be hard. Any other company that tries to make a handheld PC from now until Steam Deck 2 is going to be at a disadvantage, I think, because everybody's going to be like, oh, Steam Deck 2 is coming. It says it in this quote again, we're excited about and working on. You know what I mean? It's coming. So why would you get one other than, you know, for me, my personal taste, Ally X, which I think is just Windows PC is it for me. It's amazing. So
I was chuckling as you were saying, you were talking about ROG Ally, but I started, once you started talking about like other handheld makers, my gears started turning, and I thought about the Ioneo 3 announcement, and I'm like, yeah, that's, and how many Ioneos were there between 2 and 3, right? Like, right. I think literally 6 or 7. So, yeah.
Russ isn't even sitting in a chair. He's just sitting on a stack of Ioneo handhelds.
Yeah, they've got to innovate in some sort of design way. You know, that's going to be the big thing because it's another candy bar. It's got to have something. You know.
Yeah.
Everyone does a bar.
Go ahead.
What'd you say, Cary?
I said everyone does a bar. The bar is like
you're ready for the clamshell.
Yeah, just slide out game. Yes. I just keep on. It's right there. It's literally right there, guys. And they just won't do it. They'll make every iteration of other thing in small iterations, but nothing that is like genuinely nothing like the others. Yeah, it's it kills me.
It's rough. It's rough out here. I was gonna say I agree with everything Russ said. I think just thinking about PC gaming in general, right? Like I think a lot of times the PC gaming crowd is seen as like, oh, we all want the most expensive graphics card and the best possible graphics. And, you know, to be fair, that's because there is a very vocal group of PC gamers that have like marketed themselves that way. But I don't think it's really like even before the Steam Deck, people like you that I just am friends with, right, that are PC gamers, even before the Steam Deck, they were like, I just play games on whatever I have. The reason I like Steam or the reason I like PC gaming is because I get to have like this backlog of games that is just from Steam sales and Steam deals and things like that, and I just enjoy picking from that whenever I want at whatever like pace I want. So like we're willing to wait for games to come over, and the fact that we're willing also means that we don't need it to be cutting edge. We want some games to be cutting edge, but we're okay with just buying a game that was 2 years later ported to PC. And so I think the Steam Deck not following like a yearly upgrade cycle is following that ethos. Is just, it has to be right. It has to be in that Goldilocks zone of performance, price, and battery life, and everything else is just all about the games.
Yeah, if you go back to the first year that the Steam Deck came out, I put out a video where I was talking about the idea of, I thought that the sweet spot would be put out a new device every 2 years. And my reasoning, the reason I was thinking every 2 years is because if you put out a device every 2 years, then there's always something that's fairly fresh for somebody to jump in with. I wasn't saying that everybody should be upgrading every 2 years. That's ridiculous. But I always thought that it made a lot of sense to always have something that as somebody who might want to buy a thing, I wouldn't want to buy something that's like 4 years old, you know? And so I'm like, 4 years old, that's going to make me hesitant. But if it's only just 2 years old, well, then that might change things. Clearly, Valve disagrees, and they understand computer hardware way more than I do. So if that's what they're saying, then that's what they're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we're also in this like weird place where like, so Sean Layden, former PlayStation executive, was just quoted as saying like the console arms race has plateaued, and handheld race is different, right? And there's maybe some room, but it's not that much different. And so like there's only so much, and I do feel like the arms race has plateaued. And again, people are just focused on good games. It doesn't matter, like to an extent graphics matters, but not to the extent that it's selling consoles the way it used to, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The question that it makes me think of is, Valve says it's not fair to do a bump every year. Most of the companies who are making handheld PCs are essentially laptop manufacturers, and they've just changed the form factor of a laptop and slapped a controller onto the side of it. So do you guys think, like, Asus put out the ROG Ally and then they put out the ROG Ally X a year later? Do we anticipate that we're going to be getting the next ROG Ally next year, or do you think that they're going to wait and see what Valve does first? Cary, what do you think?
So when I went to the Asus headquarters, that was a discussion point. They also talked about making their own custom silicon, which would be a very tall order. It would just be a large expense. They were talking about the economics of actually jumping into the handheld space with regard to how well sales have been versus, their expectations. They said that they did well, but likely that they're going to have to just use what is available. And unfortunately, AMD doesn't really, there's so many companies that just don't really value gaming. It's such a weird thing. Like, gaming is this huge industry, but when it comes to the hardware side, everyone's always lagging behind. But it's also the one thing that pushes hardware to the limit. Like, no one's like, oh, I need to get the latest CPU for spreadsheets. Like, no one does that. So it's always gaming that is pushing the reason to get the best. Yet in the same breath, they're saying, well, no one really buys gaming hardware. And I don't get it. It bothers me. And unfortunately, AMD, for better or worse, they're still like in the small company mindset. AMD was in a bad spot in like 2015, like a really bad spot. And they weren't even sure if they were going to continue being a company. Bad spot. They had ATI, AMD GPUs, and they had their CPUs. They basically made a gamble and put all of their money into CPUs. If you take a look, first, what do we define? Let me ask you guys this, and also the comment section of YouTube. What do you consider a generational leap in performance? What is that number?
I don't have a number. Yeah.
Would you say 2 times?
2 times what? What are you multiplying it by?
Like
2 times
frames per
unicorns?
second
No. Let's say that you can get 30 FPS on the Steam Deck, and now you can get 60 FPS. Is that a generational improvement?
It's hard because there's no like generational feel when it comes to PC. It's just like, is it better? Is it worse? How better? You know? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
I get
so
all that.
I think we can all agree that when we went from the Steam Deck to the best RDNA 3 thing and seeing a 30% bump, that didn't feel generational. 30% doesn't feel generational. 2 times, that definitely feels generational. But generally speaking, 70% is more or less where people are like, oh, that was a nice generational upgrade. If you take a look at like NVIDIA GPUs, even when they were stuck on 28 nanometer, when they went to Maxwell and they got a huge performance increase, the 900 series, that was a fantastic series, and they just pulled a rabbit out of their hat with what they accomplished on that same node. That was a generational improvement despite being on the same node. So they had a microarchitecture improvement that was so significant that they were able to sell another series of line despite having no node advantage. That was critical. AMD is in a space where their only component that is generationally improved is their CPUs. If you go to Zen 2 to Zen 5, it is ginormous how much performance you get in terms of power. It's like over 2x in terms of like CPU side of what you can accomplish Zen 2 to Zen 5. So that in that space, that's generational. The problem is, and it's something that I've been talking about forever, is that the GPU is what we always need. And AMD doesn't make handheld chips. They make laptop chips. And then they just cram them into a handheld. That is the core problem, that we're not getting any type of better situation. So the reality of where we're looking at here is, if Valve is going to go to a Steam Deck 2, they're going to have to at least hit 70% better inside of the same 15-watt scope, right? If you get 30%, if you get 30 FPS in this game, you need to at least hit like 45, 50 FPS for it to be considered a generational leap. Like people are like, oh yeah, that's a generational leap right there. So that's what they have to hit. But then inside of that same scope, my particular concern is that there is going to be this gigantic gap of time. And also Valve can't count to 3, that there will be no Steam Deck 3, right? Like Steam Deck 2 is it. This is it. There's no more Steam Decks after this. So after the Steam Deck 2 happens...
They did have SteamOS 3, so in this...
Right. Yes,
but
they
Steam
did have
Deck 2
SteamOS
episode
3.
1.
But was there a SteamOS 1?
Yeah. I think both,
I only know of a SteamOS 2. Like they started counting at 2.
well, yeah. You don't count at 1. There's no Half-Life 1. It's Half-Life.
It's Half-Life. So SteamOS and SteamOS 2. So yes, they did go on the SteamOS 3, and that is a clear sign that they did count to 3. But if you were to take a look, and they are making the correct decision that they should wait for a generational leap inside of the same power scope, my philosophy on this is that it would be to the chagrin of like every other handheld maker, is that Valve should push the limit further. They should really, if they're going to go make custom silicon, go to AMD and say, hey, we want custom silicon. Just give us a small sliver of your best CPUs. Give us the biggest slice of GPU you can fit on some silicon, on the best node that we can get, with the best mobile RAM that we can get, and double up on it. We need wider memory. We could get better performance on all of like the Asus RG Ally X.
Yeah.
The performance is there. It's just you can't use it. Effectively, you have 4 teraflop of GPU performance that is locked away, and you can only ever realize like 2.5 teraflop. So in RDNA 2 terms, right?
Right.
So you have all this power that is possible on there that you just can't extract. So that is what I would ask. And the LPDDR6 has a lot of neato features where you can like shut off whole channels and just like go down to a single channel if you're going to be on handheld. And then when you dock it, you can open up all the channels. So there's things that they can do that they can have their cake and eat it too in terms of being great on handheld and a generational leap in performance, as well as on a docked experience, you're going to be able to ramp it up there. So that's what I wish, and I see that it's there, but man, the AMD is just not putting any money in their GPU department.
To piggyback onto what you're saying and almost give like not a counterpoint, but just a poor man's defense of AMD's bad position, the position that you're stating is bad, is that if it wasn't for Valve, right, like handhelds, well, first of all, PC handhelds wouldn't exist, right? So like they exist with INEO, GPD, all of that, but I mean in this sort of mass mainstream sense.
I think that those are just like that's our imagination. I don't think that those really exist in the real world.
Right. So
that
like
throne that Russ is sitting on exists. I assure you.
Okay, fair enough.
So like, and then even after Steam Deck, like ROG Ally, I'm sure sold more than it would have sold if there wasn't a Steam Deck, right? Like if Asus just came out and sold. So I'm sure they sold at least something, right? Like you said fairly well. But the thing is, they also said that it's not selling quite as much as they would have liked, right? And then we have like the Acer guy. I think it was the CEO of Acer. I don't remember. An executive at Acer was like, I don't think this is going to sell well, the Nitro Blaze, but we're going to release it anyway. And I'm like, Who does that, right? But I don't think he's alone, right? Like MSI Claw didn't sell well, and they're going for a second round. But I have a feeling they're done after this, right? Like if it doesn't sell well, they're not going to try again. I think Asus is going to try again. And they have to, because they're the only ones I think that can like penetrate this market at this point. Lenovo had like we've seen rumors that they're going to come up with the mini or whatever it is, but they're slow rolling that. Whatever they're doing, they seem to be slow rolling it. So I feel like they have some trepidation there. I guess my point is, AMD doesn't have a lot of customers when it comes to like, let's go out and make a real gaming chip. And you're right, Valve has to be the one to do it.
Yeah. There's a chicken and egg scenario that is definitely happening here, right? Like the Acer CEO guy is like, no one's going to really buy this, but I guess we kind of have to do it. There is that mentality in that they literally have in their head that gaming hardware is just not going to sell. And what they have and what they're trying to sell is... gamers are the worst. They are the worst in terms of value. Like a lot of people just look at a PS5 and they go, "Oh, okay, that's $500. Oh, that company's selling it for $900. That's a scam. They're making like $800 in profit. A PS5 is $500. Sony makes like, I don't know, $400 on a PS5 every PS5 they sell. And it's like, no, they don't. They don't make any money on it. Please, like the concept of value from consoles has so just clouded the market of what people's expectations are for what they should get versus the dollar value. And going along, Valve is also to blame because they can get the 30% cut on all the Steam game sales. Steam Deck itself is also subsidized in price, and Asus and all these other guys can't really compete against Valve themselves. So Valve, who is arguably, and I would agree with you, that they have springboarded PC gaming handhelds into the mainstream mindset, at the same time, they have also castrated every other person trying to enter into it because of what they're doing. And, okay, that's fine. They're also doing a fantastic job in supporting it very well, and there's not much else I could really ask for. So what they are doing is fine by me. And I think Asus deserves a lot of credit because, like, when they were announced the RG Ally, I was pretty critical on it. I was like, if this thing has a native portrait display and it's 1080p at 120, these guys are so far off the mark that they don't like it. And then all of the marketing material had no mention whatsoever that it was a VRR display and native landscape. And I'm like, guys, what are you doing? Like, pay attention. Like, you're not. What do you?
Most people don't understand what that means, though, Cary. You got to remember, most people, you say it's a native landscape display, and they're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, but I mean, like,
to be fair, I only know it because of Cary, right? So, like, the more he preaches that, the more people will learn.
So
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying most people don't know. That's why they don't market it that way.
My point that I'm trying to make here is, to Asus's credit, they did the correct hardware. They looked at it from a gamer's perspective in terms of like an engineering thing. What is the best thing to make for a handheld? And the Ally screen, you can talk about colors and all the other stuff, but when you talk about fidelity of the screen itself and how little power it takes, yeah, they were on the money big time with it. It's one of my favorite screens. I'm glad that GPD uses it on the GPD Win Mini. It's it's a fantastic screen. So Asus deserves a ton of credit. They also created an 80 watt hour battery that I feel like everyone needs to we have to do at least 80 watt hour now as a minimum, because if you have less than that, it's going to be seen as less than. So there's lots of things that I think Asus did that they have foundationally made this is the barrier of acceptable for PC gaming handhelds, and they deserve a lot of credit because they were a lot of firsts in that scene.
So prior to the Steam Deck, and then I'll let you jump in there, Russ.
Sure.
Prior to the Steam Deck, you look at the price of PC handhelds, and they were very expensive. And then Valve stepped in with that, as Gabe said, very painful price. And that is exactly as Cary said. That pushed everybody down and made it really hard for anyone to compete. What were you going to say there, Russ?
I was just going to say that I hope, we have to hope that Asus is going to work against their own best interests, because they are a hardware manufacturer. I mean, and that whole laptop kind of mindset of like, oh, get the next one out and all that kind of thing. I hope that they see things like Valve's quote here about, waiting and whatnot. I hope that they don't see this as, hey, this is an opportunity to release another one before they do, but instead it's like, this is an opportunity for us to wait as well, because an ROG Ally 2 with like Thunderbolt 5 and like new architecture in terms of like battery life and whatnot, that's what I want to see, and I'm worried that we're going to just see another one come next summer or whatever, and it's just going to be it won't feel like a generational jump even from the Steam Deck, and that's my worry. I would rather they wait, but they're not in a position where they have that luxury to do that, because they're not making any sales off software like Valve is right now. They can just kind of sit on the Steam Deck for a bit and they're still getting that 30%, and then they'll have the next one and whatnot. They're in that advantageous kind of situation, whereas Asus is like, we got to get the next hardware out. So yeah, I'm worried. I think that they made some risk, like some risky moves with the ROG Ally in the first place, and the fact that they took the time and did it right. I'm hoping they take the time and do it right for number 2 as well, because for me the X is just like a perfected version of the original Ally.
I have a question that maybe you guys can answer, and maybe it's a stupid question. I'm not sure. I always say there are no stupid questions, but there are a lot of inquisitive idiots, and that's me right now.
That's funny.
Is it possible? Well, it's not my quote. Somebody said that someplace, and I read it. But is it possible that these handhelds from companies like Lenovo and Asus, and probably not Ioneo or whatever, but like this is like chips that they bought to do a thing with, and they're like, you know what? The laptops that we're going to put these in, we know that we only have so much room in the market for these laptops, and we have these chips left over. How can we use these chips? Oh, well, let's just design a board, throw them on there, and ship a handheld. And that's like their solution to having too much inventory? Is that a possibility? It just occurred to me while we were talking.
No, it's not an inventory problem. They're using the same chip. So the Z1E is the 7840U. That's all it is. It's just a 7840U with the XNDNA part fused off. So that's all it is. It's not like they have a surplus of stuff. They literally just saw, oh, there's a handheld market. What do we have that can be a handheld? It's like, well, we have this laptop part. And they're like, ship it. Call it the Z1E. And in fact, make sure it doesn't have mainstream drivers.
gotta pay for
Well,
those.
Give that guy a raise.
Yeah, I don't think it's like I don't think they're buying, bulk binned AMD CPUs. You know what I mean? I think they're probably doing it per order or something like that. I'm sure in an ideal world they could order 200,000 at once kind of thing, but I'm not sure how that economy works.
Yeah, me either. Anyway, I was just curious about that. Moving on, we got a remake that is employing some people who apparently lost their, it's the people who never make a good game. I guess that's the lesson that we need to learn, because the people that made the new side-scrolling Prince of Persia game, which everybody that I talked to said was actually pretty damn good. I didn't buy it. I didn't play it. I think I played the demo at some point, and I liked what I played. But it didn't meet the the expectations, the forecasted sales that Ubisoft was hoping for, and so a bunch of the people who were working on that Prince of Persia game, they got the axe, and some of them are now working. Go ahead.
Did they get the axe? I saw things like disbanded. I saw things. So I assumed that to mean that they were moved to different teams.
I assumed that meant that some of them are no longer employed, and some of them were able to retain a job at Ubisoft and then just shuffled around to different places. I don't know if anybody actually knows.
Yeah,
I just know the studio closed or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Well, the people, some people who were working on that, or who worked on that game, are now going to be remaking Rayman. Rich, you just put out this really fantastic video about the history of Ubisoft and stuff like that, and why they're falling on their face over and over again. And if you guys haven't watched that video, please make sure that you do. But here's what it says, and then I want to hear what Rich has to say about it. It says, per our sources close to the situation, this is from InsiderGaming.com, the unannounced Rayman remake is under development with the codename Project Steambot, and is being pieced together by a team located primarily at Ubisoft Milan. The studio has directly contributed to the creation of more than 24 Ubisoft games over a 20-year window. It has been estimated that around a dozen developers from the disbanded Prince of Persia team have migrated to work on the Rayman remake. Elsewhere, other developers have pivoted to work on Beyond Good and Evil 2. I can't believe that I'm reading that out loud, but okay. And the next Ghost Recon title. Rich, what's your take on this, man?
Yeah. So for the Ubisoft part specifically, my video, the thesis is basically reckonings are late, right? They don't come on time. And so I feel like Ubisoft's worst days, their hit was a long time ago, actually. It was 3-4 years ago, and they've been trying to get better since then. But the problem is you lose what I called the moat, right? You lose the people that are going to go to bat for you even when there are downtimes, because they didn't put any passion into what they were making. So the Lost Crown is an example of that, meaning it's an example of a good game, right? They made a great game, but they lost a fan base that was there for Prince of Persia, that was there for Assassin's Creed, and probably would have bought the game kind of regardless. I know that there was a lot of talk about, there was a lot of things, right? There's the fact that it didn't come to Steam on day one. There's the fact that people felt like it was quote unquote overpriced for what it was. It certainly was not, but I understand how you can get that impression from am I going to pay $40 or $50? I think it was 50 for a 2D Metroidvania. Hello, yes, I am. I will do that.
Yeah.
Right. I will absolutely do that.
But it's only got 2 dimensions. It's one whole dimension it's missing.
Right.
Though. It should be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
33% less dimensions.
Yeah. So yeah, I think people have that, but they also don't, right? They don't have that for Metroid. So there has to be a trust that's built up that we are as good as Metroid. And I'm telling you, the Lost Crown is as good, if not better, than Metroid Dread. So, but that takes time to build up that trust. And so when you disband a team as soon as they don't have that success that you're looking for, then yeah, this is the pattern that they're building up, is that we're only accepting like the biggest mainstream hits, and if you make a good game, it doesn't matter because it didn't sell what we wanted it to sell, which, by the way, it's the publisher's job to sell. It's not the developer's job to sell. The developer makes the good game, the publisher sells the game.
Yeah, but the publisher makes all the decisions, so
This is true.
I don't think that works.
For me, I really think the biggest chunk of that isn't price at all. Like, price maybe enters into it a bit, but the reality that I subscribe to is that not being on Steam day one is the biggest fumble that they've done, and continued to fumble for a while. Everyone has come back because they realized doing their own store was a massive mistake. And you have EA, Ubisoft coming back. So that for me is the biggest one. And I really can't stress enough that there is, in fact, a zeitgeist for gaming, that if you are not there day one, if you don't get that hype there, you're gonna lose all of the steam that's built up on whatever platforms that you've relegated it to. So, you look at Helldivers 2, even though, that game took off on Steam. If it was on PS5 first and then 6 months later came out on Steam, I don't think anyone would play it. But because it's there day one, the zeitgeist is there, and then it becomes a FOMO thing, and it's a whole bunch of different stuff. So not being on Steam day one, when that is, for better or worse, where people play PC games, that was a huge fumble. And, you look at all these companies, how can you put all this marketing money into something and not have it available somewhere that people expect something to be available? It's just a waste of money. And I don't know, I come back to this thing all the time that, like, the day one stuff is important. Black Ops 6 on Game Pass day one is something that a lot of people didn't anticipate. It's going to be interesting to see what the numbers are. I downloaded it because why not? So it's I don't know. The whole day one thing is pretty big, because if I'm not there day one, I'm not going to be there until I can get it for a good price. And that's basically where it comes down to for me.
I always tell myself I'm not going to get it right now because I've got too much to play, and then I'll pick it up later, and then I never do. I always think I'm going to, and I never do. So you're 100% right, Cary. Even if the fact that I think a lot of companies will try and do this, like they tried to do this thing where they're like, we can get that zeitgeist bump when we put our game out. And then we'll get it again when it comes to Steam. And then we'll get it again when it comes to consoles. And a lot of times when it doesn't come to Steam day one, just too many people just completely write the game off. And I am absolutely one of those people. And I do think Ubisoft has learned from that. They've even said, hey, we're going to start bringing our stuff to Steam more often. Square Enix said, we're going to stop this thing where we're, where they partner with Epic, and Epic has, gives them a hat full of money and says, keep your game on our platform first. And I like that isn't happening anymore. I want the games to be on the Epic store. I want them to be on, it was the Ubisoft one. Uplay?
Connect.
Uplay.
Connect.
Oh, Ubisoft Connect. I want it to be on that, but I also want it to be on Steam so that no matter where you want to play the game, you can play the game. And, it just makes it easier that way. All right, let's move on to, by the way, while you were talking, I was like, I wonder how many people are playing Helldivers 2 right now. And so I checked, it's 41,000, which is just 2,000 less than New World Aeternum, that's interesting to me because New World is a little bit older of a game, but New World Aeternum, with that new weird name that I don't know how to pronounce, there you have it. Moving on from Rayman to Nintendo had this weird NDA that's not an NDA. They're like, please don't share. And
it's a Valve NDA.
Yeah, the Valve NDA that everybody got mad when anybody broke the NDA for Valve. that's not really an NDA.
Listen, I'm not going to say anything.
Nobody is getting mad about people breaking it for Nintendo. Like, I don't see anybody saying, whoa, you guys are jerks about breaking Nintendo's non-NDA, but that's neither here nor there. Before we mention this story, has anybody in here played the Nintendo thing?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so, hey, none of us signed this NDA. We can talk about it. Apparently, Nintendo is making an MMO, which gets my attention as the guy who loves to play MMOs. I guess I just like to subscribe to games instead. But according to the game description, the goal is to work with others to fully develop a massive, expansive planet. Sounds kind of like Minecraft. By utilizing creativity and farmed resources, although they said framed resources, I think they mean farmed resources there. Players will encounter new lands, enemies, and resources as they progress and utilize beacons to create zones to develop the environment around where they're placed. These beacon zones are personal. Players can only move, lift, or edit items in zones they have placed and can't edit anything within someone else's beacon. So basically, it sounds like you've got this big open world. You have a beacon, you can put it down and it like makes a little bubble in the world, and then you can build whatever you want, but then you can go explore other people's stuff. And that sounds really fun. I love that idea. It sounds very, very similar to, I cannot remember the name of the game, and maybe one of you guys can help me. It was by the people, it never came out, and it was by the people who made EverQuest. And then they ended up getting bought by Sony, and then they ended up spinning off the original people who made EverQuest. They spun off to make this other company, and they were going to make a new game that had like these voxels that you could smash and then build stuff. Does anybody know what game I'm talking about? Because I just remembered it while I was playing or talking.
No.
Nobody knows. I'm going to let you guys talk about this Nintendo MMO, and if you're interested, and I'm going to see if I can find it. Rich, start us off, man.
So the game that I thought of just when I read the description and saw the pictures, and I have no idea if this is anything similar, but was like Nobi Nobi Boy. So like it's just I don't think Nobi Nobi Boy is MMO per se, but it was just like everybody like working together to make Nobi Nobi Boy longer. I think maybe it's just this like mysterious everybody working together thing that is making the connection in my head. But I think also there seems to be like a theory out there that like this is like some sort of Street Pass Miiverse thing, right? Where it's not a standalone game, but it could be like a platform, so to speak, for Switch 2 players, and that would be cool.
Yeah,
that would be pretty cool.
I keep, initially I thought, okay, this is maybe some new IP or something, but hearing this like described as it is, it makes me think that it's some sort of next generational Animal Crossing kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because that's what they kind of, you have your little islands or whatever and beacons, whatever they want to call it. Or the other thing that kind of kept coming back to, I know people like to say Minecraft or Roblox, but I think that like No Man's Sky is kind of making me think about that as well. Like just this kind of dropping down on a planet, using the resources to make what you can and whatnot. Yeah, I'm curious, but I don't think this is the type of game I would play. But
the sheer money that just like raining down on Nintendo just happened when you said Animal Crossing MMO, and I was like, oh, man, those guys are going to be printing money. Goodness gracious. And I know there's so many people that are just hardcore Animal Crossing fans. So having an Animal Crossing MMO would just... Do you guys want to print money? Yes, please. We'd love to print it.
Yeah.
I have to say, by the way, I could not find the game that I was talking about. Maybe Landmark or something like that, but I Googled it and I couldn't find it. I adored, and does that jog your memory, Cary?
There was like an EQ2, but that was EQ2, but like...
Yeah, that was actually EQ2. It was something else.
But no, there's like the land something.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Well, whatever it was, I'm sure that the fine people in the YouTube comments will be able to fill us in on that, because, they remember things that we can't. I adored Animal Crossing on the Switch. I think Russ hated it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My family and I had an absolute blast with it. But connecting to everybody's
Village?
To everybody's Switch was such a pain in the ass. If it's just like a shared world and I can just like go wandering around and I come upon Rich's town that he's building in Animal Crossing, whatever, and he's like, I can go walk into his store and I can buy the stuff in his store. Like you could really have a fun, cozy MMO that I think Nintendo is the company that could pull it off more than any other company. And I don't know if that's the game.
By the
Russ
way,
just sent Landmark. Go ahead.
Nice. When you guys are talking about Animal Crossing MMO, are you guys thinking that like this is a new IP that can be an Animal Crossing MMO, or are you thinking that this thing is just like a facade, right? And this isn't what the graphics will look like. This isn't what the art will look like, and they're just going to use this and build in literally an Animal Crossing MMO.
Yeah, that's my thought. I haven't seen any pictures, but that's my thought, is they're just going to be like, okay, those weren't the skins we're going to use.
Yeah.
These are them, you know?
Yeah.
I saw a picture and I was like, I'm okay. None of this looks familiar, but yes, it makes sense that they would hide whatever it is that they're making behind this, as you said, facade.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right, moving on to right before we started recording, when we were waiting for Cary and Rich to join us, Russ and I were talking about TV shows that we've been watching, and God of War is getting a TV show from Amazon, and Amazon, they apparently fired whoever was going to be the showrunner, or changed who was going to be the showrunner for the God of War TV show. And it's now going to be Ronald D. Moore. And if you don't know who that person is, they made Battlestar Galactica, the new version of Battlestar Galactica that came out with Edward James Olmos and Katie Sackhoff, and I can't remember the rest of the cast, but that show was really, really good. I loved it all the way to the end. I absolutely think that's a fantastic show. They also made another show that I cannot remember the name of right off the top of my head, and it's not in the show.
Outlander. He did For All Mankind.
For All Mankind. Yeah, that's the other show that, if you've never seen For All Mankind, is like a alternate history. What if the Russians beat the United States to the moon? And like all of these different things that changed over time. I am not in love with the God of War series. Like, I didn't really play the PlayStation, like the old PlayStation games. And then when they rebooted it, I played a little bit of the new one, and I was like, oh, this game's pretty cool, but it just didn't capture me the way that, or maybe I just was too busy. So I never really gave it a full shot, but I definitely want to watch this show, especially if Ronald D. Moore is watching or helping to make it. It's going to be a while before we get to see it. But Cary, I think that you're a big God of War fan, right?
Yeah, yes, I do. It's one of my favorite PlayStation franchises.
Are you hyped for this or no?
So, if the production of God of War TV show is going to be in the canon of God of War universe, like whatever happens on the show happened in the game, and it's going to respect God of War, then yes, I'm going to absolutely love it. If they're going to like, no, this is like another universe and this is an adaptation of God of War, I'm probably not going to like it at all, because why would I? That's fan fiction, right? It's like, I'm going to watch fan fiction. I don't want to watch that.
I fully expect them to take the Last of Us route, and it's basically going to be like beat for beat the two games.
If he takes off his helmet, Carrie's out.
It's the books, the original books of Halo. I'm really upset with. We talked about this 2 weeks ago as well. Bungie never really cared about lore, insofar as they've always said whatever happens in the game is prime canon. If there's something that doesn't align with the books or anything else, all of that never happened. It only ever happened in the game, and that is such a cop out for better storytelling. Because if you're playing a video game, I don't care. when I play a new game and they're just doing this exposition and they're just like giving me this lore dump, I'm like, guys, I don't even know if I like your game yet. Chill out with the whole universe created stuff. Like, let me play the game and see if I care about your world first before you start giving me all this story. Halo was like that for me. I didn't care at all about the story when I first played it. But when I played and beat it, then I read the books, and then I started really liking the story of Halo. And for a lot of people are like, oh, there's no story to Halo. There's not a complicated story to Halo. It's literally the Bible sci-fi. That's all it is. It's I mean, you have the Covenant, you have the Ark. It's all there. It's Bible sci-fi. And that's fine. You know, the Forerunners are humans, and it's all this stuff, and everything got really muddy. For God of War, if they do it beat for beat, I would love it. I would watch it. It would be a thing that I know my wife would want to watch, and it'd be cool because my wife loved the Last of Us TV series. She loved the Last of Us TV series. So when we were going through them, like, that happened in the game, that happened in the game, and I was just like, she's like, oh man, that's pretty cool. She's not really that big of a gamer. So there's a shared interest between both of those, and it's the same thing for like Fallout, where that was done with it was from the outset, whatever happened in the Fallout TV series is canon to the game series. That is now something that you want to watch and engage with because it becomes part and parcel of the entire experience. I don't want to engage with something if it's just going to be some random offshoot thing that doesn't matter at all. My time is already booked up solid. I don't want to just throw my time away on something that you are saying is just an offshoot or whatever.
What do you think, Rich? You excited for this?
Yeah, I am. So yeah, I still haven't seen The Last of Us. So I need to do that. But
it's amazing.
Part of me doesn't. Part of me is like, I played the game, so I don't need to.
Right.
So that's part of what I feel about God of War as well. Although I did stop short, but I expect I'll beat God of War by the time this series comes out. I hope so. Dear Lord. But yeah, so like I am excited for it though, and I think Sony has a cheat code when it comes to like Cary's thought process here about like sticking to canon, where like, man, at least these two, The Last of Us and God of War, they play like TV, right? Like they play like you're in a cinematic moment, and even just like the fights that are happening are built that way. The encounters that are happening are built in such a way that they're meant to like be cinematic and be like a directed moment more so than just you having some emergent gameplay, right? So I think they have a cheat code in that way.
I think that we're going to see a lot of Atreus saying, and oh, look over here, there's a commercial break, and then we'll jump to the commercial. Russ, you and I were talking about Lord of the Rings, and you like that they dump a lot of money into that show. Are you excited for this show?
Yeah, I am super excited. I got two reasons why. First is that Cory Barlog or whatever, he is the executive producer, so he is involved. I mean, that guy's been with God of War since the beginning, and so I think that story-wise, I've got a lot of trust in that, and I also think that this is a story that it will work perfectly for television, because the way I'm seeing it is that they will start the show in the 2018 God of War remake, like that story. And then they can use all the other stuff in flashbacks, and like make episode flashbacks, stuff like that.
Great.
Like, why is he being a jerk right now? Oh, it's because this happened in God of War 2 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, being able to frame that together and have basically two opposing sides. I think of God of War 1 through 3 as being very red games, like this, the feel of it is red, the blood's everywhere, it's like a lot of emphasis on like, just the chains and all that stuff. Everything's like orange or red in those games. Whereas God of War Beyond is all blue. And so I feel like this could be color-wise, they could make some really interesting things happen there, and going back and forth between those two storylines. And they've got, if they can get like a 3-season guarantee or something, that would be amazing, because then they could have the time to really pull out those stories, because there is a lot that happens in God of War 1 through 3. It's mostly just, hey, this is the next guy I want to kill and I got to get to him, but there's a lot there, and especially like Greek and Norse like mythology and stuff. Like I'd love to see all that as well. So yeah, I'm super excited about it, and I think this is a story that could be told really well.
I'm glad you mentioned the original trilogy, because that is a rich like amount of lore there, and it would be a shame if they just let that go. I think flashbacks would be the perfect like set piece for that.
Yeah, that never even occurred to me that they would go back to that old stuff. I just figured that they would just start with the new one and just tell the same exact story like Cary was saying. I love the idea of going back to when he was younger and seeing more stuff.
Yeah.
So ultimately I think that my only worry, my only concern is that Sony did fumble really hard with the Uncharted movie, and they went to their knee-jerk maneuver of let's just put Tom Holland in it because he prints money. And Tom Holland was not the right choice to choose to headline Uncharted at all. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the demo reel of Nathan Fillion in the Uncharted thing.
Yes.
That was so well done and directed. Like he falls out of a window, and as he gets up, the camera like pans. That looked just like the game, and I'm like, this guy gets it. And they didn't use Nathan Fillion. They didn't use that director. Like it was just like they had it. They had it right there, and they were just like, no, let's just get Tom Holland. And no one remembers it. No one cares about the Uncharted movie, and that just goes to show you that it can go in like wildly different directions. And that's my concern: is if you get some producer in there, you get some executive in there that's like, well, we need someone that's gonna, put some butts in seats. Let's get some, I don't know. Let's get Danny DeVito to be, I don't know. They just really
started blasting.
Yeah. I just want them to treat it with respect. And sometimes you just see it, they go way off the rails, and all of us are just left scratching our heads like, what was that? What? Yeah, so that's my only concern.
Did I
Danny
make this
DeVito
up?
would be great as the Smith, the grumpy Smith. I forgot his name. He'd be great.
Yeah.
So he could be
that's
awesome.
That's what I was going for. But it's like there's no real. The Super Mario movie went well, but I think all of us collectively were like, Chris Pratt. Like no one was like, oh yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah. Chris Pratt did a very good job. He's an excellent voice actor, but I don't think anyone was like, yes, Chris Pratt is Mario.
I think he was, but nobody else.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Rich?
Did I make it up, or was Chris Judge like saying he throwing his
No, you
name
didn't make that up. I remember him saying that he wanted. For those of you who don't know, Christopher Judge is the voice actor that does the voice, the quiet boy, that guy. And he said he wanted to play the part. The one who famously had like a 8-minute speech at the Game Awards or something like that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I would love to see him as Kratos. The guy's huge. Like, he is a big friggin' dude, and he's got the voice already. All he's got to do is get more jacked than he already is, and start printing that money. And you've got you've got that continuity between the voice and the show. I think that would be really cool to see.
Yeah.
Something else that is really cool to see is our upcoming games that are coming out in the next week. We've got Life is Strange Double Exposure coming to PC, PS5, Xbox, both sets of Xboxes. We've got Phasmophobia coming to PS5 and Xbox. That's a game that's already on PC. It's actually really cool, and I played that a couple of times with some friends. Very, very spooky game if your friends aren't like super experienced at the game, because it's better if you're all playing fresh. And basically you get on voice and you go into this game and you're looking for a ghost, and you got to like talk to the ghost. Like literally you'll be like, are you here, Linda, or whatever? And like spooky stuff happens. It's really cool. Red Dead Redemption's coming to PC October 29th. Pokemon Trading Card Game is coming to your phone on the 30th. Blasphemous 2, PC, PS4, PS5, and my camera just turned off for some reason. Okay, weird.
The Blasphemous 2 is a Mea Culpa DLC, so it's not the game. The game's been out.
Mea Culpa.
That's just the name of the DLC.
Oh,
That's just the name. It's a very religiously oriented game. Like they have a lot of metaphors and stuff like that. And so this is just, this additional DLC for the game that came out, I think, earlier this year or late last year.
Okay. And then we have Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which I'm very excited about. I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember what podcast it was. The one that has Skill Up on it.
Oh yeah,
and
friends per second.
Yes, friends per second. Thank you. And they were talking about they had some hands-on time with the game, and I'm very excited for that game. Comes out on Halloween, and then Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered is coming to PC. Any of these games that you guys are going to be picking up, and while you talk about it, I am going to fix my camera. I'll be right back. Go ahead.
I'll start. So I'm looking at Dragon Age Veilguard because I love BioWare and I love their games. You know, I even liked the Anthem a little bit, and so yeah, I've been waiting for a good BioWare, you know, and so I'm ready. And I didn't realize it's in 5 days. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, that's the one I'm thinking. Yeah.
I gotta piggyback. I'm thinking Dragon Age: The Veilguard. It looks really good. I'm hoping they deliver, but they seem to be trying really hard to make sure they deliver. And I too am a big BioWare fan. Not Dragon Age, but Mass Effect 2, one of my favorite games of all time. Yeah. So if they can match anything close to that, I am in there.
I even liked Mass Effect 3. Both endings. Like I was like, cool, I get a second ending. Like I don't really care what happens, you know, I'm not going to get upset about it, but if you're just going to give me free game for more, like I'll take it, you know.
Right,
so
right.
I've always liked that. I've never gotten far in any Dragon Age game, maybe about halfway through either of them. Inquisition and whatever the one before that was, Legend. No, I didn't play Legends. It was Dragon Age 2. Yeah. And so yeah, but I'm ready. My body is ready for this.
Let's go.
The only game I'm looking forward to is Black Ops 6. I don't know if you guys have checked the reviews that came out for it, but it's getting like really good reviews. People are saying the campaign is fantastic. Like it's a really, really good campaign. It's about 8 to 9 hours long, which is fantastic to me. So having a giganto campaign set piece that is just amazing, I'm actually looking forward to. So that's probably the new game. Like that's this, like, you know, the holiday bump of congested amount of games that come out that is just vying for our attention every year. That's probably what I'm going to be doing. Probably right after this, I'll probably start it up.
I'm going to give it a shot. I've never really been a Call of Duty person, but I'm going to give it a shot because I have Game Pass. So why the hell not? You know, and I didn't put it on the list because it comes out October 25th. We're recording it on the 25th, but you know, people will see this, it'll already be out by the time then. So I didn't think to include it, but I got to give it a shot.
The Modern Warfare, the original for COD4 for 360. When I played the campaign, I was like, oh, okay, this will be kind of cool. I liked Call of Duty 2. That was all right. And then when I played Call of Duty Modern Warfare on 360, I was just like, whoa, these guys are banging on all cylinders. Like going to Pripyat or like wherever you were, and like that whole scene of like the entirety of it was just to snipe one dude. I was like, that was an amazing scene. And I beat it all on like the hardest difficulty, and the Mile High achievement I got, and like that took me like, I don't know, 30 40 minutes of like constantly running through. And it reminded me of Call of Duty 2 on veteran difficulty, because when you're playing the game, they're all like in the same position and they're all super hard. But as you play through the game, how I picture it in my head is like the guy, me, who's like going through and dying a bunch of times. Eventually the one that has died like 100 times knows where they all are. So I'm like throwing grenades exactly where they're going to be. And I'm running and they pop out and explode.
You're like Bill, Groundhog. You're like the guy in like Bill whatever in Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah.
It's like oh my god, he's just massacring everybody. How does he know
like
where they're gonna be?
Yeah, the Tom Cruise movie, Edge of Tomorrow, or whatever, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's just like that. And the Mile High Club is just like a minute long thing. But when you're rushing through it in veteran, you have to be perfect. So it's like bip, 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 and you're like flashbang grenades, and you're just like running through there to get. It was such. And then the slow mo part where you're just like aiming. You're like, come on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that experience again with Black Ops 6. So hopefully,
to give you more perspective though, so those were Infinity Ward games versus Treyarch, right? You know how they like went back. So I've never actually played any Black Ops games. I've always been an Infinity Ward guy. So Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 4, and then all the Modern Warfare ones. Like those have always been the ones that just felt better for me. I have those same memories and feelings. Call of Duty 2 and 4 were just so amazing. Maybe 6, given the fact that it has such a low barrier to entry that we don't have to actually pay for it, like, because we have Game Pass, like,
right.
that definitely makes it a lot more compelling.
Yeah, so, I'm looking forward to it. We'll do that right after this.
Very cool. And, we got to get together and, you guys can teach me how to play when we do multiplayer or something.
They got zombies. They got zombies in
this. Zombies on
Black
the other
Ops
side,
6.
the Treyarch side, and that's always fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We should do a round of zombies.
Absolutely. All right, before we wrap up, because we are running out of time, I have a quick question. So, Russ, last week you and I were talking about the Analog 3D, and did you buy it?
No, I went to the pre-order page and I was like, even if they unlock it, because it does have an SD card slot, even if they did make it unlocked and you could play all the Nintendo 64 games, I'm not going to play $250 worth of Nintendo 64 games on this. And so I was just like, no. And so I did. Out.
I'm very excited for it. My wife even stopped by our local retro gaming shop and she picked me up a copy of Blast Core, which is... It's a fantastic game. The guy who sold it to her was like explaining it to her, and she was like, "Oh my god, that sounds fantastic!" Because she goes, sent me a text. She goes, "What games do you want?" And I said, I listed off a bunch, and I said, "In Blast Core, this is the only one that they had. They didn't have any of the other ones, so I'm going to be probably perusing eBay to try and get some of the other ones that I wanted to be able to check out on this thing." But I guess I didn't have to worry, because I think it's still available, which is really surprising. And like everybody was talking about how they said, no, $250 for this thing is not overpriced. It is expensive, but it's not overpriced. Everybody was expecting it to be much more expensive than that. I expected it to just fly off the shelves. And some people are trying to sell them on eBay, even though you can just buy them from Analog right now, or pre-order them from Analog right now.
The white is out of stock, but the blacks are still in stock. Yeah.
Yeah. I bought the black one, and the white controllers from 8-Bit Dough, I ended up having to get the white controllers because the black ones were not available to purchase. So I ended up buying white ones. But this is going to get hooked up to my my living room TV, and like when people come over, Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, old school, and N64 stuff. I'm very excited for it. Cary, did you pre-order this, or did you decide not to?
I'm not, like, FPGAs for me. They missed the mark on a lot of different things. I love FPGAs generally speaking. But there's no, when I look at this, I'm just like, if Angry Lion and Parallel didn't exist, I would be like, oh yeah, all right, I definitely have to do this. But since Angry Lion, and now you have all the other tools where like software development on emulation side for N64 has picked up, especially in like the last 2 years, I don't care as much. That's basically where it comes down to.
Rich?
As a result of this, I actually ended up, as a result of this, the pre-order day, I ended up taking out my Mister. I have like a Mister FPGA that I bought years ago, and I've had it in the box. I'm like, I'll do a whole video about it and whatnot, and just left it in the box for years. And finally, I was like, they can play Nintendo 64 now, so let me set it up. And I spent a day doing that, and that was not fun. So it almost made me want to be like, man, that analog 3D process is actually a lot easier, But I'll talk more about that Mister at some other point. But that was kind of the thing, that the impetus to get me to try it out finally. So
that makes sense. Yeah, none for me, thanks. I don't have any N64 games. I must have sold all of mine back when, I don't know, when I bought a GameCube or something.
Right.
So I don't have any. And yeah, it would be like prohibitively expensive, I think, to like get the ones that I want. Other than Blast Core, I would buy that immediately. How much was that? Are you able to say?
It was 18, I think. 18, which is a really good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Blast Core, for those of you that had never played Blast Core, it is a ridiculous premise. There's a nuclear bomb on a semi-truck, that for some reason can't stop, and it's like nobody can like run up to it and like climb on it from another car and get in and just hit the brake, and it's just driving in a straight line through towards a city, and your job is to drive an indestructible car and slam into the buildings in the path of this nuclear bomb disaster and make sure that you break all of the buildings, and you know they just disappear after you break them. There's no rubble left over, and so that the semi truck can just drive through the city. I don't know who had this fever dream that this would be a good game, and who that they sat down at a board meeting or whatever and said, we're going to pitch this game, and somebody said, yeah, go ahead. But I'm glad that they did, because it's super fun, even though the premise is just bonkers ridiculous.
I didn't know
It's
there
definitely
was
one
a
of those
premise.
things that's like a.
Oh, you never played Blast Corps, Rich?
No, I've played it. I had no idea there was a premise. I just thought,
Yeah.
I just thought I was barreling down buildings. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay.
More or less, like it's the facade of a story. But yeah, it still was like immensely fun. And I think that's, you look at Assassin's Creed 1, right? Like some guy at Ubisoft was like, look, the guy like kind of like moves really nicely through a crowd, and like, look at his hands. And they're like, oh, we should make a game about this. This is a tech demo that a game revolves around. And that's all Blast Corps was. Like, they were like, oh, I can make destructible things in N64? Oh, this is kind of fun. We should make a game. I'm like, all right.
And I figured the guy who made it, like, he had just saw Speed, like, in the theater.
Yeah, it's
that night.
inverse
It was like,
Speed.
you know what? We got to put these two together.
Yeah, this truck goes 5 miles an hour and can't stop.
Yes, and that's the other part, is the semi truck that you're trying to clear out. It goes really slow. Like, I'm out of shape. I could have run and caught up to this thing and just climbed up and hit the brake, but then we wouldn't have a game.
Nope.
But we would have a bunch of videos from all of these guys. So, Rich, why don't you tell everybody what video you're working on next, man?
Yeah, next one is talking about SteamOS 3.6 and covering the what Valve said here with the Steam Deck 2 not coming soon, and what that means for us going on.
Very cool. Cary?
I'm finally finishing up the last bits of my GPD Duo review. That has been a long time coming. So finishing that up.
That's the one where it has the two vertically aligned screens, right?
Yep.
Okay. And Russ, what have you been working on, man?
Same. I'm working on the GPD Duo review. I think just talking to Cary about it, like we have totally different like experiences with it and perspectives, which I think it's going to be perfect. I'm just doing the straight on, turn it on, and how is it? Kind of thing where he's like, let's go and bibbity bop here with the cores and whatnot, and park this and that. And I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm just turning it on and being like, all right, what am I going to get if I get this? Hey, it's got two screens. What can we do with that? And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also working on an ROG Ally X video. Like I think I'm going to call it like perfecting the Ally X. I still was waiting for some extra hardware to come in. It just came in yesterday. So I'll probably knock that out early next week as well.
By the way, Cary, I don't know if your wife watches the show, but I know that she designs your shirts and stuff. You need to get her to make you one that says, do you even bibbity bop?
Do you even bibbity bop?
Yeah.
Do you even bibbity bop, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
How many cores you parking?
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the NerdNest podcast. Thank you all for hanging out with us for this hour and 37 minutes or whatever it turned out to be. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.